Hello students, so let us continue with chapter 2. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together by Gordon Cook and Alan East in your Hornbill. Okay, let us continue with the same chapter, but before beginning today's class, let me revise what I have explained in my last video. In my last video I explained till, let me show you the paragraph on the screen. Yes, in my last video I have explained till here, till this paragraph. Okay, so next part of the chapter I will explain today. So before beginning, let me revise what I explained in my last video. Okay, so let us begin. In this chapter, the narrator and his wife plan a voyage around the world, just like famous captain James Cook. They have been preparing and perfecting their seafaring skills for the past 16 years. They get a ship which is 23 meters long and weighs 30 tons, wooden hulled, named Wave Walker. They test it in the rough weather for 2 months. In July 1976, they all started their journey for Plymouth, England. They sailed from Africa to Cape Town, which was quite a pleasant journey. Before heading east, the narrator hired 2 crewmen, Larry Wiesel and Herb Sizzler, to help them tackle one of the roughest sea, the Southern Indian Ocean. They encounter strong and alarming waves. During the second day, by December 25, they all managed to reach 35,000 kilometers east of Cape Town. The family somehow manages to surpass the bad weather and celebrates Christmas together. The weather changes for the worse, and on January 2nd, the big waves hit him. They tried to slow the ship down by dropping storm jib and hit a heavy mooring rope in a loop across a stern, but it doesn't help much. They carry their life raft drill, attach lifelines, donned life jackets. They wore their life jackets and oilskins. Later in the evening, a vertical and huge wave strikes the ship, and the narrator is thrown off from the ship. He accepts his approaching death. He starts losing consciousness. When the ship is about to overturn, a huge wave hits again and turns it right back. He suffers injuries in ribs and mouth. He grabs the guardrail and sails into the ship's main boom. So now he could see only water everywhere on his ship. So he could see only water everywhere. Okay. So let's begin with the next paragraph from here. Larry and Herb. So let me start explanation from here. Larry and Herb were pumping like madmen. Broken timbers. Timbers means wood board used in building of a ship. So that is timbers. So broken timbers hung at crazy angles the whole starboard. Side burst inwards, clothes, crockery, charts, tins, and 'twas sloshed about in deep water. I half swam, half crawled. I half swam, half crawled into the children's cabin. Are you all right? I asked. Yes, they answered from an upper bunk. But my head hurts a bit, said Sue, pointing a big bump above her head. I had no time to worry about bumped heads. After finding a hammer, screws, and canvas, I struggled back on deck. With the starboard side bashed open, we were taking water with each wave that broke over us. If I couldn't make some repairs, we would surely sink. So in this paragraph, the narrator tells us the crewmen Larry and Herb were pumping the water very fast. The timbers of the ship were broken and were hanging badly. The starboard of the ship had sunk. Clothes, crockery, charts, tins, and toys were roaming around in deep water. The narrator swam and crawled to the children's cabin and asked the children whether they were all right. The children replied, yes. Sue, his daughter, complained about a big bump on her head. The narrator didn't pay much attention to it, as his major concern was to save them. The narrator found screws, hammer, and canvas. He went back to the deck. The broken starboard side was letting so much water in. If the narrator could not fix the problem, they would all sink in the sea. So now narrator in a great danger. The weather was the roughest weather. So he had gone through the roughest weather. Yes, let me explain the next paragraph. Somehow I managed to stretch canvas and secure waterproof hatch covers across the gaping holes. Some water continued to stream below, but most of it was now being deflected over the side. So somehow the narrator managed to stretch a long, unbleached cloth, that is canvas. So somehow the narrator stretched the canvas cloth and secured the waterproof hatch which covered the gaping holes. Some water streamed below and some was now deflected over the side. Some water now turned aside. Okay. More problem arose when our hand pumps started to block up and the debris floating around the cabins and the electric pump short circuited. The water level rose threateningly. The water level rose threateningly. Back on deck, I found that our two spare hand pumps had been wrenched. Wrenched means pull suddenly removed overboard, along with the forestay. Forestay means a rope to support ship's foremast. Sail the jib, the dinghies and the main anchor. Dinghies means small boats. So now the hand pump was blocked. The narrator found his hand pump was blocked as rubbish was floating around the cabins and entered it. The electric pump short circuited. As the water level rose, as the water level increasing, the narrator found two hand pumps had been removed along with a rope, jib, a small dinghy, a small boat, and main anchor. Then I remembered we had another electric pump under the chart room floor. I connected to it an out pipe and was thankful to find that it worked. Yes, then he suddenly remembered that he had another electric pump. So he found another electric pump under the chart room. He connected to it an out pipe and started working, and he was lucky enough that he found those hand pumps were working. Yes, look at the next paragraph. The night dragged on with an endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping, steering, and working the radio. We were getting no replies to our midday calls, which was not surprising in this remote corner of the world. Midday calls means, these words used to signal ships stuck in a distress situation through radio. So when any ship stuck somewhere, so they convey the message. So this message is called midday calls. The whole night was about the endless routine of pumping out the water, steering the wheel, and working the radio. They passed their whole night this way. There were no replies to their signals sent over the radio, as they were in the remotest part of the world. So that is why they could not establish the connection. So they could not get any replies. Sue's head had swollen alarmingly. She had two enormous black eyes, and now she showed us a deep cut on her arm. When I asked why she hadn't made more of her injuries before this, she replies, "I didn't want to worry you when you are trying to save us all." So Sue's head was now more swollen, and she had two back eyes with a deep cut in her arm. When upon being asked why she didn't tell him about her injuries earlier, she said that she didn't want to worry him as he was trying to save them all. So this tells us how sincere the girl was. She did not share her injury. We had survived for 15 hours. So they had survived for 15 hours. The wave hit, but Wave Walker wouldn't hold together long enough for us to reach Australia. I checked our charts and calculated that there were two small islands a few hundred kilometers to the east. One of them, Isle or Ile Amsterdam. Ile Amsterdam was a French scientist base. Our only hope was to reach these pinpricks in the vast ocean. But unless the wind and seas abated means something unpleasant to become less intense. Seas abated so we could hoist sail, our chances would be slim indeed. The great wave had put our auxiliary engine out of function. So here pinpricks in the vast ocean means the two small islands in the vast ocean were very tiny, like the prick caused by a pin. So in this paragraph the narrator tells us the water level was under control. They had to work for 15 hours. Then they found that I think I have missed any paragraph. Oh, sorry. I have missed this paragraph. So once again let me explain from here. By morning on January 3rd, the pumps had the water level sufficiently under control for us to take 2 hours rest in rotation. But we still had a tremendous leak somewhere below the waterline, and on checking I found that nearly all the boat's main rib frames were smashed down to the keel. In fact, there was nothing holding up a whole section of the starboard hull except a few cupboard partitions. So let me explain these two paragraphs. The water level was under control by the morning of January 3rd. So all of them took 2 hours rest in rotation. But there still was a leak somewhere below the waterline. Upon checking, the boat rib structure was badly broken. Upon checking, the narrator found the boat rib structure was badly broken down till the base of the ship. The whole section of starboard was held together with a few cupboards partitions. Let me explain this paragraph. I have already read it. So the ship's condition was so bad that it would not make it till Australia. So they had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit, but the wave walker wouldn't hold together long enough for us to reach Australia. After 15 hours, they found that the ship's condition was so bad that it wouldn't make it till Australia. The narrator checked the charts and calculated that there were two small islands a few kilometers to the east. One of them was Ile Amsterdam, which was a French scientific base. Their only hope was to search and reach the island, but only if the wind and the sea do not cause any further destructions, any further damage, else their chances were slim. Because the wave had destroyed the ship's auxiliary engine. Auxiliary engine means here the helping engine. The helping engine was also out of order. So that is why narrator thought it was very hard for him to reach Australia. Okay. On January 4, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached the last few centimeters of water. Now we had only to keep pace with the water still coming in. To keep pace with the water still coming in. We could not set any sail on the main mast. Pressure on the rigging. Rigging means the rope and wires supporting to the structure of the ship. So the pressure on the rigging would simply pull the damaged section of the hull apart. So hull means the framework of the vessel. So we hoisted the storm jib and headed for where I thought the two islands were. Mary found some corn beefs and crackers, biscuits, and we ate our first meal in almost 2 days. So in this paragraph, the narrator tells us that after 36 hours of continuous pumping on January 4, the water was only a few centimeters left to be pumped out. But they still had to pump out the water which was coming in. They could not set sail on the mainmast. They hoisted the storm jib and sailed towards the two small islands. They had their first meal in 2 days. Some corn, beef and cracker biscuits found by Mary. But our respite means a short period of rest. But our respite was short-lived. At 4 p.m., black clouds began building up behind us. Within the hour, the wind was black to 40 knots and the seas were getting higher. the weather continued to deteriorate throughout the night, and by dawn on January 5, our situation was again desperate. So in this paragraph, the author tells us the rest period was short-lived as black clouds built up around 4 p.m. The wind was now 40 knots and the sea was getting higher. The weather got worse, and by the early morning of January 5, the situation was bad. Next paragraph. When I went in to comfort the children, John asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" I tried to assure him that we could make it, but Daddy, he went on, we aren't afraid of dying if we can all be together. You and Mommy, you and I. So from here, from the statement of Jonathan, the writer also give the title to this chapter, we aren't afraid to die if we can all be together. So the little boy said this. Okay, so when the narrator went to comfort his children, when he went to comfort his children, his son asked him whether they were going to die. He tried to assure him that they would make it. His son replied that they were not afraid to die till they all were together. I could find no words with which to respond, but I left the children's cabin determined to fight the sea with everything I had to protect the weakened starboard side. I decided to heave to means to raise or lift with effort. So heave to with the damaged port hull facing the oncoming waves, using an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope and with 22-liter plastic barrels of paraffin. So now in this paragraph, the narrator tells us this filled the narrator with a determination to fight back. He made efforts to protect the weakened starboard side. He used an improvised sea anchor made of heavy nylon of rope and 22-liter plastic barrels of kerosene. Paraffin means colorless flammable oil liquid, that is kerosene. That evening, Mary and I sat together, holding hands as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. We both felt the end was very near. So that evening, the same evening, the narrator and his wife sat holding hands, and they believed that their end was near, as the sea waves were very high and they could see the weather. It was the roughest weather. So there were no hope that they would be safe, they would be saved. Okay, so Mary as well as the narrator, they were sitting together, holding their hands, and they were thinking that their end were near. Okay, so it is all about today's video. In my next video, I discuss the rest part of the chapter. Okay students, so thank you for watching the video. I hope you people must have enjoyed today's class and this interesting story. Okay, see you in next class.